Yo, Bar.
Lloyd.
So today we're going to make a video advertising our 2024 race engine. We had been competing in the modified Fords for 2 seasons, and we had went through
4 engines? 3 engines? 4. Yeah, 4.
So we just couldn't get any reliability.
No.
And we were offered a virgin block.
Yes.
Now, why that was very exciting is with our previous engines that we kept on blowing up, the problem was they'd already lived a life before we got them, Barry.
Oh, 100,000 mile road cars probably, they'd done their work before they were turned into race engines. And we just didn't have any luck with them. We had no luck.
No.
So,
And we had lots of other issues with breathing and oil issues and stuff. So what happened is we got offered a really unusual engine block. It was a Mountune block that had 0 miles on it. It had been purchased by Stuart Day. I think he'd bought a couple of them or a number of them. So it was very exciting to start off with basically a brand new engine block.
New old stock.
Yeah. Another thing that was exciting about it was a recent development that had happened the previous year is one of our competitors, Joe Oates, had been out competing in a 4-wheel drive Focus that had a Cosworth engine, and it was dry sump.
It was.
And until that point, we thought that the only option when it came to dry sump was the 2-wheel drive.
Yeah.
So he had successfully demonstrated that you could make 4-wheel drive and dry sump work. So the combination of the idea of building a brand new engine on a brand new Mountune WRC block and making it dry sump, we kind of pushed the boat out and said, let's go for it. Yeah.
Shall we run through the specs of the engine?
Yes, so before we do that, we sent the head and the block to Lee at Barham Engines, along with recommendations from Stuart Day of what the ideal spec would be to build an engine that would be capable of 650 brake. Even though we weren't going to be running it at that power level, we wanted to kind of overspec it.
Yeah, we were just looking for a bit of insurance. I think initially when we sat down and spoke about this, we were wanting to have a reliable 500 brake horsepower engine that was overspec'd to give us 2 things, a bit of insurance and also a bit of headroom in case we decided to change turbos, do something different. Instead of having to take the engine out and do it all again, overspec'd it quite a lot.
So what is the full spec of the engine, Bar?
Okay, so it's got Cosworth YB Virgin Mountune Block 200 block, adapted by Mountune. It has the 10 long stud conversion. Yep, 10 long studs. It also has dry sump. The shroud and intake for the oil filter system has been completely removed, and it has now been retrofitted with AN fittings to allow oil inlet in that area. Also on the oil return sides, it has AN fittings adapted into the block as well. So a lot of the hard work's been done. Internally, it's got oil squitter jets that have all been put in, so instead of it coming off the oil pump and along the little line with the 2 V's facing up into each cylinder, it doesn't have that. It's got actual jets that have been bored out through the length of the engine block with an oil feed line that goes in, and it has its own independent feed to 4 individual squitter jets aimed up into the bottom of the piston crown. So that's interesting and very good for cooling. It has a 3-stage pace dry sump oil pump. So it's got 2 scavenge lines and feed line and a return line that all run off of the one system. When Lloyd comes a bit closer with the camera, we'll have a better look at that because it's quite visible. The pulley that drives the oil sump, the dry sump pump, has been pegged in place. So I took it to the machine shop, I had 3 pegs put in. So if the bolt was ever to fail, let's hope it doesn't, it hasn't all its time, but it's got a bit of insurance on the back end of that as well. Stop that pulley from breaking away, hopefully give you enough time to sort out. Pistons, 90.8 Omega piston. It's got Bridgeway rods and Ford Cosworth crankshaft, fully resealed, new thermostat and housing on there, all new pipework, all the lines are Pro Golds with braided lines. We have got, just at the top of the engine, vernier cams set up. Whoever buys the engine will tell you what the settings are, don't want to shout about it over the internet. We've got K20 coil packs, coil over plug. Got BD14, BD16 camshafts. Now these aren't standard camshafts, they're for the solid lifter conversion. It's also been carried out on the engine. So anyone who knows a bit about YBs, there's a bit of work involved. They've all been shimmed when the engine was built. We've not had any issues with them. It's been really, really good. Intake side, we've got a Roman Opliger Motorsport intake. We're on a Bosch drive-by-wire throttle. Not sure what size it is, I think it's about 78, but don't quote me on that. We're running 1000cc Bosch injectors, 4 of. Hot-sided engine, we've got a Walton Engineering manifold. It's V-band on that one. We're running a Garrett G30 660 turbo with speed sensor and a 0.83 AR housing, all on V-band, and we're running a Garrett 45 wastegate. Intake we've got is a Pro air filter, Ram air filter, 90 degree just to fit in here. Runs on an RS500 intercooler with 2.5 inch piping. Yeah, 2.5. We've got this coupled up to twin plate clutch and it runs around 560 brake horsepower at 1.8 bar of boost. A couple of photos will get fired up as well with the dyno graph on it when it was at Andrews. So that's the main parts of the engine. Now it's had modifications done to the cylinder head. It's got gas flow ported inlet on it. Yeah, inlet side been gas flowed and ported. The combustion chambers have been deshrouded and polished. It's got a WRC head gasket on it as well. And again, whoever buys it will let you know what the compression ratio is. Well, I think that's pretty much the guts of it there. So,
Mountune WRC block, we opted to go with WRC pistons and rods, so slightly shorter pistons and slightly longer rods. The idea being it's meant to make it a wee bit torquey.
I think it helps in the mid-range, doesn't it? I think that was the idea behind it.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then it definitely does that, because this is a mid-range monster.
Yeah. So the air filter that's on it just now, we only adopted that later on in the season. We actually started off with a turbo guard.
Yeah. So do you want to tell a story, or do you want me to?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, the turbo guard was Barry's idea, because he saw one on a JDM car and he thought, cool, that looked really good.
It did look really good.
Yeah.
And you can pick what you want written on it, and it's got silicone. I'm not here to knock them, it's not what I'm here to do. So throughout the season we will take the car back to our tuner, Andrew Gallagher at AG Motorsport, and we went to Castle Coombe and we picked up these turbo guards from a friend, And we get them straight on the engine, with a bit of bling, we love it. And we didn't have a great weekend. It was hammering with rain, first time at Castlecombe, bit of a difficult one. Came back, Andrew gets the car back, puts it on the rolling road, and it's down on power, like a chunk. And he's like, oh, has a play about with that. Takes off the turbo guard, finds all the power. Turns out that this little guard that just sat across there, the cross hatching, there was so much of it to stop any debris getting into the turbocharger to do its job, was restricting airflow. Was it what, 14, 15 brake horsepower? It was something wild.
Yeah, I don't think Andrew was overly chuffed about that, because from the first time he dynoed it to then when the turbo guard went on, he's saying, oh, the engine's down on power, there must be a problem. I think he put a couple of hours in that evening, left it on the dyno overnight, rattling his brain about where this missing powers came from, came back in the next day, took the turbo guard off, and voila, the power was back. So turbo guards, they look good, they don't work.
It's a shame. It's a shame because it looked great in the engine bay. My bad. Sorry, wasted £100 at Lloyd's.
Yep.
Won't be the first, won't
No.
be the last.
So one of the other things that makes this engine pretty special is the four-wheel drive dry sump. So again, this was through Joe Oates. His pal had originally designed the four-wheel drive dry sump, and now we see that there has been some prominent engine builders who have drawn inspiration, should we say, from the sump that was
inspiration, right? Okay, that's one way to say copy that.
Yep, and now I do believe there will be multiple four-wheel drive dry sumps out there competing in the world that will be pretty much based on the original four-wheel drive dry sump that we got from Joe Oates' contact, from his pal. So, solid lifters, full WRC spec engine. We believe that when Barham done the porting on it, it was 26.8 inlet and 25.5 on the outlet. So not wicked wild, not drag race kind of spec, but it, as I says, everything was built to 650 brake spec. So another good thing about this engine was we were very lucky that we found a very low mileage, zero ground crank. So the crankshaft that's in it had never been ground, and one of the, actually, I remember, Barry, when we were building this engine, Lee had big difficulty finding the piston rings. Because the block is, what is it, Nicasol lined.
It's Nicasol lined, and to try and find aftermarket piston rings on a standard size for a 90.8, it was really difficult. I can't remember where we ended up getting them from, but we got it all sorted.
But it turned out all of the Nicasol line compatible piston rings were all plus a half.
They're all
plus one. So
0.5.
it was very difficult to get to piston rings that were standard size.
We got them. That's cool.
So Andrew originally set it up on the dyno, and what was it? But what was the original results on the engine?
560 at 1.8 bar boost. And that was on its first dyno session, and it maintained that throughout the season. We never turned the power up anymore.
We did experiment with the AR housings though.
But it didn't work for us.
No.
You know, it wasn't what we were after in the car. So on the larger AR housing, made great top end, but it brought down that drivability window to the really high revs. Well, not really high, but higher revs. And you just kind of come out the corners and have to wait on it. But with the smaller AR housing, we were really in the mix with it all season, and the tracks that we were driving on.
Like at Donington, she was just wild, wicked at Donington.
Podium twice in a weekend. That's still chuffed, and that was about 4
months we're still buzzing. Anyway, great engine, utterly reliable, Barry. It never put a foot wrong.
No.
the only issues we've had with the car in relation to the performance was we started to get a kind of weird thing that was happening after we changed gear. And this was one of the reasons why, again, it went back to Andrew to try and get to the bottom of what we thought could have been possibly an engine issue, and it turned out it was...
It was to do with the flat shift.
It was to do with the load cell on the flat shift, so...
No, gear indicator on the flat shift, was it not?
So what was basically happening was, after you changed gear, we were getting... it was like a hesitancy, and it turned out that to do with the flat shifting, there's like ignition cut that is meant to happen when you're changing gear, and the load cell was being problematic, and
it wasn't seeing what gear it was in, so it wouldn't come out of the ignition cut phase to start to select the next gear.
Yeah.
So we were kind of sitting there for, you know, a split second that we're going ding, 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 and then go.
Yeah.
But we got to the bottom of it. It's all fixed now.
We got to the bottom of it, but it was never an engine issue, it was a gearbox issue.
No, it was a gearbox.
Or like an electronics issue.
Yeah, just electrics on. But we got it all fixed, and the car's been running really good. I mean, so good that it won the SLS in reverse at Knock Hill one weekend.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, we missed our dinner for it. But
Like, think about this, bar. We went from competing on a car that we just couldn't get right. We couldn't start, we couldn't finish races, we had nothing but mechanical issues. And this season, she was faultless, she was brilliant, and we owe it all down to the reliability of this engine. Now, over-spec'd, yes, and probably we were a little bit fanatical about maintenance as well.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain exactly what went on in between the races?
So after every race, it was plugs out, gaps measured. It was so much so that we had our own notebook to write down from race to race what the changes were. So we'd check the gaps of the plugs, we'd fit new plugs and gap them. Before they went in, we would scope the engine, and we didn't just have a wee peek inside, we used to rotate the engine 180 degrees so we could see the entire piston and the liner. Done that with all the cylinders. Then we compression tested it, kept a note of it, just so we could, you know, have a look to see if there was anything trending. We'd do all that. We used to swap the oil every single race, at much detriment to Lloyd's accountant. I don't think anyone's...
I thought at one point it was sponsored by Miller's. We were using fresh oil after every race. It's a bit...
You've got a dry sump.
Yeah, it's a bit over the top.
Fresh filter every race, fuel filter, we clean that out every race. We were going through it front to back, nut and bolt check as normal. Coolant, we even got, you know that thing that you buy when you're an apprentice mechanic to check the coolant. What do they call it? Hydrogrometer.
Yeah.
We even got one of them out. Nobody knows how to use it, but we used it.
But it meant we had an utterly reliable engine. So now we're looking to sell the engine. It's difficult to price it because you don't get back what you spend on it, and it did cost quite a lot of money to build this engine. Yeah, when you add it up, it's yeah. Anyway, so we're looking for £16,000 for the engine, and what you get is you get the engine, you get all the hot side, you get all the cool side, so you get the turbo manifold.
We'll probably do the downpipe as well, to be honest, because we're going to need to swap that out.
Yeah, so I'm come down for here, 1 second.
It's like a ninja.
Like a
cat.
Geriatric ninja. So talk through what comes with the engine bar.
So we need to keep the air filter, but you can have the turbo, the AR housing, the downpipe, the wastegate, fuel pressure regulator, the blocking head, thermostat housing. We can't give you the hoses, we'll need to reuse them at some point because we'll keep this radiator. You will get the obligate inlet manifold, the wiring harness, the K20 coil over plug coils, a Simtech ECU so it's already mapped for you. You will get the dry sump, you will get the dry sump pump. We will retain the lines because they're custom to our car. So that's something you'll need to source yourself.
Fuel pressure regulator?
Fuel pressure regulator will come with a car, it's all set up, ready to go. Yeah, that's probably about your whack there.
So you're getting an engine wiring loom, you're getting an ECU, you're getting
sensors.
Yeah.
We'll give you all the sensors. Maybe not the lambda, but everything else.
Yeah. So pretty much we can offer a plug and play 4-wheel drive engine package.
Yeah, and whoever buys it, it's LSU 4.9 that is running on the Lambda if you need to buy one. That's what it's mapped on. There's a map sensor as well. Yeah.
Quite a bit. I'll be sad to see the engine go.
Not as sad as me, I put a lot of hours into that.
But next year is about development for us. We are starting off with a fresh platform, and it's not really showable yet, but we'll show it. We'll show it in time. We'll show it in time. But yeah, fantastic engine. It's been utterly reliable. The turbo's fresh. It's a fresh turbo.
Yeah.
It only went in.
It's got a speed sensor on it as well.
It only went in at the start of the season. So it's a Garrett G30 660 with the speed sensor. Good turbo. And we'll give it with both air housings that we used.
Yeah, we're not going to need that again.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. So £16,000, you can bag yourself an engine that probably cost us close to 25, I think.
I think it was more, maybe.
Maybe more than that, but that's racing, kid.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't it half?
Yep.
Oh well.
How many hours do you think it's done?
8.
8 hours. So, and it was zero. Basically, the block was 0 hours.
Yeah, the head would have done a wee bit, but the block was 0.
Yeah.
Whoever gets it, it's a bit of a bargain, isn't it? You know, you couldn't build it for £16,000. In fact, you probably couldn't source some of the components.
No.
To build it, you know, to find another block like that.
To buy a 0 hour Mountune block. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Anything else, Bar?
Do we need to sell it?
Sadly, it needs to fund projects and you. Right, anyway, if you would be interested in it, give us a shout. Put my contacts up in a second. That's it, innit, Bar?
That's it.